Well, Grizzlies, we're always stressing about going to see live music and actually experiencing the stuff you hear on the Grizz. And today, I have to tell you, I'm super stoked to be speaking to someone who's leading the charge on that. It's the founder and lead vocalist of Powerman 5000. Welcome to the show, Spider.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Before we discuss your new album, New Wave, which is absolutely fantastic, and it dropped just, last week, the 27th, I want to know a little bit more about you and let my listeners kind of get an insight into who Spider is.
Oh, no. You sure you want to do that? That could be a problem.
I kind of do.
We can try. Yeah.
Well, see, what's funny is I have arachnophobia, so I'm talking to a guy named Spider, first of all, which is a big feat for me.
Yeah, well, ironically, my girlfriend has, a deathly fear of spiders as well. So, if one's in the car or something, she literally will jump out the door onto oncoming traffic.
I don't blame her.
I don't know what it is, but I'm a good spider, at least in some ways. So there's no fear here.
So how did you get the name Spider?
It's so funny. That's what people ask all the time, and I wish there was a really great story. And honestly, I'm not even sure. It's been so long. What I can trace it back to is I attempted years and years ago, before I started Powerman, to start another band. And there was an old horror movie called Spider Baby, and I wanted to call the band Spider Baby. And the band never did. I don't even think we ever wrote a song, or maybe, but for some reason, the spider thing wouldn't go away. And now I'm just, 25, 30 years later, stuck with this ridiculous nickname that it just won't die. And I won't answer to anything else, Maybe my mom will call me something else. But other than that, unless you say Spider, I don't turn around,
Well, it says that you actually were in art school and you decided to drop out to pursue your musical career. So what made you decide that art school wasn't for you?
Well, I loved art, and that was the whole path I was on. I sort of geared my whole life to doing something. I guess I ended up doing something in art, but I always loved music. When I was in high school, I discovered punk rock, and that was sort of what changed everything for me. Like any other kid, I listened to whatever was on the radio. But then I found these bands like the Ramones and the Clash and the Sex Pistols and Black Flag, and it was like suddenly I was like, whoa, this makes sense to me, and then there was also this tangibility to it that I was like, wow, I think I could do that. I think I could. I knew I couldn't sing like Elton John or play the guitar like Eddie Van Halen, but I was like, I think I could sing like Henry Rollins. So I got really excited about that, and so that kind of always was with me. And I tried to start a little band in high school, and had some fun with that. But I went to art school. But that was in Boston, and then that's when I started to discover sort of like this local punk rock scene. I would go to all the clubs, and to me that seemed way more exciting than drawing, bowls of fruit. So I was like, I'm going to go this way for a while and see what happens.
So what bands would you say influenced you to take that step? Would it be like Black Flag and the Clash and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was really those bands, because that was, even though Powerman isn't really like a punk rock band, there has always been a punk rock attitude in there, because that was always me, as a kid. Those are the bands that, and I felt like I was a part of something. It made sense to me. I guess it was sort of like the perfect soundtrack for an angry 14-year-old, you know what I mean? And living in Massachusetts with nothing to do. I just related much more to that than Journey or something, it just made sense to me. I always felt really trapped growing up, in this small town. I just knew there was more for me, and those bands, for whatever reason, kind of paved the way, And plus, they were cool. I was never one to follow the rules, and punk rock, at least back then, it's sort of the more popular form these days has changed into something totally different. But back in the day, it was really like a real subversive kind of scene that not a lot of people were into.
Now, a lot of people may not know that you have a famous brother as well who's in the music scene, Mr. Rob Zombie. Do you think he helped influence your style of music choices, or do you think you both kind of had their similar paths and just kind of branched off a little bit? Well,
look, we're only 2 years apart in age, so we sort of grew up loving the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was always a slight difference in, his aesthetics, like growing up. He was more, you'd be, I guess, more listening to like an Alice Cooper record, and I would be listening to a Clash record. So there was a little bit of, but we both loved the same stuff as well. Oddly enough, I sort of started dabbling in the band thing before he did. He had moved to New York and to go to art school as well, and then I started my band in high school, and then it wasn't until years later that he started White Zombie. But I suppose the biggest influence that he's had on me is not so much musically, even though we do have a similar style and
Right.
a similar vocal style, because I guess if you ever heard our speaking voices, they're pretty similar
Yes.
as well. But I was just, he found success and he did it on his own terms. And I always looked at that as inspiration that, because a lot of us always had, you had, people you knew in music or tried to make it, and they always have horror stories about how terrible it was. And, we got ripped off, and the label told us to put these shiny shirts on, and we never, whatever. But I always had like a good success story to look to. That no, you can succeed, and you can do it on your own terms. And so I suppose that overall that's kind of like the biggest thing, that the biggest influence he had on my outlook on things.
Now, when you look up Powerman 5000, especially a lot of bands are kind of in this where they're categorized. What do you guys consider? Because I know people call you nu metal, people call you heavy metal. Which category do you actually feel like you belong in?
Yeah, I don't really know, honestly, and that's kind of why I think the title of the new record is so fitting. I grabbed this term. I'm sure a lot of people under the age of 30 or something don't even know what new wave
I
is.
do. I'm 41, so I'm with you.
Yeah, but it was a term that was created to sort of classify bands that weren't able to classify,
right.
And it was also a term to take the early punk rock bands and make them palatable to the general public, because people thought punk rock were just these gross guys from England spitting on each other.
Right.
So they decided to call it new wave to clean it up a little bit, I suppose. But to me, it was about bands that, whether it was Blondie or the Cars or Devo or whatever, these bands that they didn't really make any sense. They weren't like a traditional rock band. And that's how I always looked at us. We fit into this metal scene. We would do tours with Metallica or Ozfest. But really at the end of the day, we were sort of the odd man out. We weren't quite, we were a heavy band, so we kind of made sense in that world. But, we weren't like, perfectly fitting into this heavy metal mode. And then, as you mentioned, there was this term nu metal that was created, which was very strange to all of us because someone, I don't know who made that one up.
I don't either.
So I guess, the short answer is I don't really know. We're really eclectic, and we draw from a lot of different influences to try to create a sound that's unique. And, but it definitely grabs from a lot of different places.
Well, and that's a good thing because you don't want to be pigeonholed because in the 90s, everybody sounded like Eddie Vedder and everybody was sounding like Creed. So it's good to stand out on your own. I think that's good that you can't be pigeonholed that way. And with your new album, I have to say I got a copy of it. Fantastic. It's very raw and dirty sounding, and I love that. What made you decide to go that direction for New Wave?
Well, I think because every time we make a record, I'm always happy with the record, but then we go on tour and we play the songs for a year, and then I realize they've become very different animals, and I go back, and then a lot of times you make a record and you never listen to it again, but then so I'd go back and revisit these records, and they would just sound so incredibly clean to me, as opposed to what we were now doing on the road. So for this record, I kind of wanted to do my best to get that sound that would be us a year later, after I've shredded my voice after, 300 shows, and we've changed the arrangements a little. And, so it was sort of an attempt anyways to get to that point, first, in the recording process, which is not always easy because, we live in a time where it's so easy to fix everything and clean it up and make the drums perfect and tune their vocals. Fortunately for me, my auto-tune won't read my vocals, so I can't even cheat if I wanted to. Yeah, my voice it's not to bore the listeners, but auto-tune is the thing that everybody uses to make their voice sound perfect.
Yeah, basically pop singers use it all the time.
Yeah, but it has to read a smooth, essentially like a smooth line of audio, and my voice is, so rough after all these years, it just doesn't know what to do with it. So,
but see, I like that rough ballsiness. That's what makes it powerful. To me, that's what moves you to be excited to want to do things and to jump around. I'm a big proponent of live music and going to see it. I've seen 200 concerts this year for the Grizz, which is amazing, and I love that that's part of my job. So to see that and to hear that, it makes you excited because it's not the same old that you can hear from anybody else. So I really appreciate that about the new record a lot.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think, for me, first and foremost, music is like a physical activity, and if anyone's seen us live, we're like a super energetic band, and I like to try to get the crowd to that point as well. I'm not, I was never a fan of music that you just sort of sat there and stared at the speaker and listened to. I like music that makes you want to, do something, and I always tried to design Powerman songs to be like very physical, whether it's, I don't know. It just makes sense to me. It's just the way that I perceive music.
So what song do you actually enjoy the most? What's your favorite one to perform when you're out there?
Of the new songs? Or
of all of them. If you had, your song, your go-to.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of changes from night to night. I mean, we definitely try to design the set where we play the songs we love, but we also know there are certain songs people are there to see, And really, it depends on the crowd determines what songs are the most fun that night. Some nights you'll play something that you think is gonna, it killed it last night, and
right.
The next night people are like, they responded more to something else. But I mean, we're definitely, it's always fun to play new stuff. We're playing the new single, Sid Vicious in a Dress.
That's,
so that's
tearing it up here at the Grizz. Just so you know, it's one of our favorites on here.
Oh yeah. So that's been really fun. We've been playing that every night. So right now that would be the one I look most forward to in the set.
Now, when you get ready to go on stage and you're getting ready for a show, do you have like a pre-show ritual that you do to kind of get you super psyched for it before you take the stage?
It's funny. We all say the same thing. We don't really do anything. We always make sure that everybody's standing together, the band, and then we just kind of like, as the intros, at a certain point, the intro rolls, and then we put all our fists together in a circle, and we put our fists together, and it's kind of like symbolically join energy, and that's like the one thing that we do awesome. Every single night. But previous to that, we're sitting around, and we're all talking about how, no matter how exhausted we are, and how we don't feel like playing tonight, or we're sick, or whatever it is,
right.
As soon as we put our stage clothes on that smell at this point like literally like 10 cat litter boxes.
Nice.
That's the ritual of like, now we're ready,
Right. Now your mind's right.
It's something about that feeling of having that clothes on and hearing that intro going, and it just suddenly you just snap out of whatever funk you might be in, and you're just ready to go.
Okay, so on a kind of an obscure thing, I always like to ask this question because it kind of gives you an insight on the person's personality. Do you have a guilty pleasure artist that maybe you don't want everybody really to know that you like? So, I mean, is there someone that, you'd have on your phone to listen to or on your iPod or whatever?
I mean, honestly, I have to most people, probably everything I listen to would be considered a guilty pleasure because I just don't, I think my musical tastes are not what people would expect. I generally very rarely listen to like heavy music because I play it all the time.
Right.
So I wouldn't consider any of these guilty pleasures because I think they're amazing, but I think they would be maybe surprising to people that you'll be more apt to find me listening to like Sam Smith and Lana Del Rey than you would, Pantera. It's just,
right.
It's like, I think I just need that balance in my life.
Right, the yin and the yang.
Back to the new wave thing. I mean, we'll be driving and I'll throw on some 80s Haircut 100. Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Oh, that's awesome! I love it.
Ridiculous. Yeah, I love that stuff.
Or Devo.
I guess that would be. But I'm not embarrassed of any of it because it's all amazing,
good.
And there's no guilty pleasure. If you like it, you love it. If you like it, that's okay.
Yeah, just own who you are. That's one of the things I talk about a lot during my show. I'm like, if you like something, say you like it. Don't be ashamed of who you are. Just stand up and be who you are.
Yeah, look, especially with music, it's all subjective, and there's no good or bad. If something connects to you, then that's all that matters.
Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to ask you this last one, and you can be honest. We're in the tree of trust, as I call it here. So you're at Thanksgiving. Okay. You're playing games with all the family and everything. Who's going to win in an arm wrestling contest, you or Rob?
Oh, I would win without a doubt. Are you kidding me? I'm so powerful. That's the reason why it's called Powerman 5000.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. Oh, come on. I think I just through sheer determination. I mean, when you're the younger brother, you have to fight harder, so you always end up being the stronger one.
Well, everyone needs to go out to see you. You're going to be at the Firebird in St. Louis tomorrow evening. I wish I could go there. Unfortunately, my schedule is conflicted, but I've seen you before at Ozfest back in the day, so I appreciate you.
God, that's a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. I was back in well, we don't want to age. Well, I'm 41, so I saw you when I was an intern for this radio station, so I've been here off and on since it's been 21 years, so it's been a while. But thank you so much for coming calling. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you. We have some Grizzlies we're sending down there to see your show, and they're going to update us on the social medias as well. And anytime you're in the area, feel free to stop by the studio. We can hang out. Maybe you can do a solo session in here, and, you're always welcome with the Grizz.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. It was great talking to you.